In a small village nestled between lush green hills and the mighty river lived a couple, Onyeka and his wife, Ifunanya. They had been married for many years, but despite their deep love for each other, they had not been blessed with children. Before they got married, they fought both unforeseen forces and evil people who didn't want them to get married. Each year that passed only deepened their sorrow. They were a kind and hardworking couple, but their inability to conceive weighed heavily on their hearts. Ifunanya would often sit by the river, watching the children of the village play, while her heart ached with the bitter emptiness of childlessness. The women in the village would gossip behind her back. Some called her a witch, others accused her of being cursed by the gods. She was ridiculed for not bearing children, and some whispered that she had angered the spirits. Even Onyeka, who loved her dearly, could not escape the village's cruel words. He wished he could put an end to their sorrows. Each night, as the couple lay in bed, Ifunanya would cry silently, praying to the gods. "Grant me a child, O gods of our land," she would whisper. "Take away this sorrow, this shame, and bless me with the joy of motherhood. The pains and weight I carry in my heart is too heavy. Please take away this pain and bless me with at least one child. I'm not asking for two, I'm only asking for one. I'm ashamed of myself that I am not productive. Please wash away this shame. I have never wished anyone evil. Why am I seeing evil? Please have mercy on my husband and I." For years, the gods seemed deaf to her pleas. But then on one fateful morning, Ifunanya was seen vomiting and looked feverish at the rising of the morning when the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a brilliant orange. Something extraordinary happened. Ifunanya felt a warmth spread through her body, an unusual, unfamiliar sensation. Her heart raced as she realized something had changed. Her friend visited that same morning when she didn't see her at the stream. She told her friend, who has been giving her hope and encouraging her never to give up. Her friend laughed and said, "May the gods be praised for their kindness. You are pregnant, Ifi." Ifunanya could not believe it. She knelt down with tears in her eyes and was speechless. A rush of hope flooded her soul. When Onyeka returned from the forest where he went for hunting, she ran towards Onyeka. She couldn't hide her joy, and she embraced him tightly, tears streaming down his face. Their prayers had been answered. Their joy was immeasurable, and the village, which had once mocked them, now celebrated with them. The news spread like wildfire. Onyeka and his kinsmen performed rituals to thank the gods, while Ifunanya and her friend danced and sang in gratitude. For the first time in years, Ifunanya felt the weight of her sorrow lift. She could already picture the child in her arms, the laughter filling their home. But as the months passed and her pregnancy grew, an unease began to settle in her heart. She had never fully understood why the gods had chosen her to bear a child after so many years of silence. But she tried to push away her doubts, focusing instead on the joy that was to come. Onyeka treated his wife like an egg. He pampered her and did all the house chores. He didn't want anything to go wrong. He didn't want any form of stress on her, and so he asked her not to do anything. He always wants her to rest. One day after long months of carrying the child, the time finally came. Ifunanya went into labor, and in the dead of night, under the full moon on the eve of the festival of harvest, she gave birth to a healthy, handsome baby boy. The husband and his kinsman were outside waiting for the good news. The midwife, a trusted elder in the village, carefully placed the baby in Ifunanya's arms. But as the midwife's eyes fell upon the child's chest, the look on her face changed. She gasped and her hands trembled. There, on the baby's chest, was a deep, crescent-shaped birthmark, a mark unlike any she had ever seen. It was dark and unmistakable, like the shadow of a curse. The midwife's mouth went dry. She whispered under her breath, This is the mark of the evil child, the one foretold by the gods many, many years ago. The room fell silent. The joy of the moment was instantly replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. The midwife came out of the hut. On seeing Onyeka, she said, "Abomination, I saw an abomination today. May the gods forgive me for seeing a calamity." Odnaka didn't understand what the midwife had said. Onyeka went into the hut. He saw his wife excited and unhappy at the same. He carried the baby and named him Ikena immediately. They all laughed. The midwife went back to the hut. She really wanted to be sure of what she had earlier seen. She carried the baby once more, looked closely at the mark on his chest. She shouted again, "Abomination! This child is an abomination." Onyeka and Ifunanya were angry, and Ifunanya's heart sank. What did this mean? How could this be? She had prayed so long for this child. She had hoped for so much. Was this a sign of rejection by the gods? The midwife quickly backed away from the child, her face filled with fear. She muttered something about the gods' warning, but Onyeka and Ifunanya were too shocked to understand. The midwife left the room in haste, her steps echoing in the silent house. The parents, still clutching their newborn, stood in stone silence. Later that night, the chief priest of the village felt that something was not right. He had a strong conviction about it. He was an old man with a face carved by years of wisdom and sorrow. His robes were adorned with sacred symbols. He quickly consulted the gods, and the gods told him, "An evil child has been born. He will bring so much pains to the land. He should be taken to the evil forest and killed, else the anger of the gods will befall the land." As early as possible, the chief priest went to the king's palace to tell him what the gods revealed to him the previous night. As soon as the king heard the chief priest, he shouted, "What an abomination!" He asked, "But who has given birth to the evil child?" The chief priest told him, "Ifunanya, the wife of Onyeka. The evil child must be killed." King Dimka was loved by everyone in the village. He hardly makes harsh decisions against his people. He was sad. He wished it wasn't true, because the parents of the evil child in question had gone through hell looking for a baby. Everyone in the village knew their story. King Dimka couldn't disobey the gods because they see into the future. He quickly summoned the elders of the land to tell them what the chief priest had told him. They concluded that the evil child must be killed before the fall of the moonlight. The king sent his guards, few elders, and the chief priest to Onyeka's house to withdraw the baby from the parents and be taken to the evil forest to be killed. When they arrived at Onyeka's house, the guards went into the hut and brought out the baby. The chief priest took one look at the baby and nodded gravely. "The gods have spoken," he said. "This child is not like others. He carries a curse upon him. He is destined to bring destruction upon this village." The word struck Onyeka and Ifunanya like a blow to the chest. How could this be? How could their son, the miracle they had prayed for, be a child of evil? The chief priest continued, "The mark on his chest is a sign. The gods have decreed that this child must not live. If you allow him to grow, great calamity will befall this village." Tears filled Ifunanya's eyes as she begged the king's guards to allow her hold her baby for the last time. The baby that made her a mother, the baby that once made her smile, the baby that took away her shame, the baby that made mockers ashamed of themselves, at least for a while. They gave her the baby. She clutched her child closer to her chest. She could not bear the thought of losing him. How could she choose between her love for him and the will of the gods? Her heart shattered as she looked into Onyeka's eyes, searching for answers that neither of them had. The chief priest's words echoed in her mind. The child must be killed. She handed the child over to the guards and wept. The guards, chief priest, and few elders went to the evil forest and killed the baby. The couples were pained. The pain of Ikena's death never left Onyeka and Ifunanya. The void in their hearts was never filled. They continued to pray to the gods, hoping for some sign of mercy. But despite their grief, they never gave up hope. Every morning, Ifunanya and her husband Onyeka would come out of their hut and face the sun. They would appeal to their chief. They would say, gods of our land, the gods of our forefathers, the gods whom we have trusted all of our lives. If you give us a child, we will make sure that he brings a positive change to this land. Please, our Chi, bless us one more time with a child. And then 2 years later, Ifunanya felt something she had not felt in years. The familiar flutter of life growing inside her. She was pregnant once again. The couples were extremely excited and thanked the gods for answering their prayers. The news of her pregnancy spread through the village, and the people, though wary, began to hope again. Could this be the child who would restore their happiness? When the time came for Ifunanya to give birth, the village waited with bated breath. And when the baby was born, the same crescent-shaped birthmark appeared on his chest, just like the first child. It was as though Ikenna had returned. The midwife saw the mark and screamed in fear, "This is Ikenna, he has returned." Everyone was shocked in the hut. Ikenna had reincarnated, and the village would face the same fate once again. The anger of the gods will befall the land as earlier prophesied by the chief priest. Onyeka and Ifunanya were devastated and pained. This time, they swore never to allow their baby to be killed. Onyeka said with a loud voice, "Let the heavens fall. Let the worst happen. If the will of the gods is for my only child to be killed, why then did they give me in the first place? I asked the gods for a baby and they gave me one. I am ready to fight and protect my own blood. I shall fight till the last drop of my blood just to save my own son. This is not Ikenna. Ikenna is dead and gone. Let the worst happen. Let the worst happen. Let the worst happen."